It's been a while since we've done some analysis on this channel, so I want to get back into doing the analysis, and I wanted to start with Venture, because I think Venture is a hero that not a lot of people have really looked into or talked about too much, and I think, wow, historically we've only seen Venture used sparingly, maybe most prominently at the Dallas Major, where Team Falcons especially had a lot of success with Mauga, Genji, Venture as a sort of very aggressive trio of heroes, going in, causing lots of problems for the Sigma BAP compositions. Now, we've seen Venture creep back into the meta, especially in Korea, which is the game we're going to look at today. So I wanted to take a look at HeeSang playing Venture against Falcons in the OWCS Korea Semi-Finals, and this isn't the Asia LAN playoffs, this is just for Korea-only tournament, which was the qualification to that, and this is on Circuit Royale, and this is actually a map that Crazy Raccoon lost, but I felt the way HeeSang played stylistically, the way the team worked around it, was actually a lot better than Falcons. So even though they ultimately lost out in the end, I feel like in terms of understanding Venture, their role within the meta, their role within a team comp, I thought HeeSang's was a much better example to look at. Now, before we get into it, it is worth saying that this match was played before the September 17th patch, which did, of course, change Venture slightly, only a slight nerf to their shield. So while I think this obviously does make Venture a bit worse, it is a nerf, it doesn't massively change the playstyle. So I think everything we see HeeSang do here still applies exactly as it would on live Venture as it does on this version of Venture on the old patch. Firstly, we should understand what Venture's good at, what sort of roles they would fill in a comp and where they would be strong. So Venture has very good close range damage and lots of good close range combos. So if you can get Venture close and take a fight with a backliner or a hit scan or something like that in close range, the Venture's going to be heavily favored in those matchups. And those are the type of matchups you want to try and find in the middle of team fights. Likewise, Venture has a really good engage tool and disengage tool. The drill dash is a good movement ability, and of course Burrow is a very unique engage cooldown where you can actually go underground, take no damage, so Venture becomes very good at going in, going out, and that's why we've seen them used in very aggressive compositions like that Dallas Major comp we talked about with Genji Mauga, where it was a lot of go in very aggressively, take the Baptiste, take the Cassidy out of the equation before the fight even starts. Venture very much suited to that type of role. Because they have such good combos and such good short-range damage in general, Venture does excel in 1v1s as well. So if Venture can ever find themselves getting into a 1v1 or isolating a target, this is going to be really good for them and the sort of thing you should look to try and do when you're playing Venture. And we'll see HeeSang do a lot of that in this footage. So without too much further ado, let's get into it and let's take a look at how HeeSang gets on with this. So we'll look at the Circuit Royale from HeeSang's POV, look at how he's using his cooldowns, how he's taking engages, how he's functioning within the team comp as a whole, and what sort of things he's looking to play for, and then try and pull all the lessons away that we can. So the first thing to probably talk about is the compositions a little bit. The compositions are very similar, and this is still quite meta now, even post the 17th of September patch, and they're two very brawly compositions, which means there's going to be a lot of cooldown trades around these Mei walls and form timings, and the Venture can help a lot in that, and which we'll see in HeeSang's playing a little bit. But the important difference to note from HeeSang's POV is, while his team is running a Brig Juno, which is a very hard to kill backline and why it's so popular at the moment, Falcons are running an Ana, and the Ana is a little bit greedier, has the ability to impact the fight a lot more, but is more vulnerable. But because they are more vulnerable, this is where HeeSang comes into play a little bit more, where HeeSang is going to try and take Fielder out of the equation and stop this Ana having value. So we'll see a little bit of that in the play as we go through. So we'll take a look at this first fight, and here we can very much see the blueprint for how HeeSang is going to start a lot of the fights, is they're going to be meeting on this corner here. So what HeeSang does is HeeSang takes a small off angle. So while the fight's going to happen in this area, most of HeeSang's team is going to be coming from this main area, trying to swing the corner. He's going to take this small off angle just to try and get another angle on the ram, get a bit more free damage, try and make it more difficult for Hanbin to shield, for Hanbin to block. And you can see Hanbin already backing up already because he knows this angle is going to be hard for him to deal with. And this is what Venture's very good at, because in these small enclosed spaces, you know, something like a Tracer wouldn't do very well here because it'd be very easy to shoot and poke the Tracer out. Whereas the Venture here can be very durable. The drill dash, the burrow can keep anyone out of this room, keep the angle for HeeSang himself, and means they can really overpower and help with a frontline fight. You can see HeeSang just poking his way in, nothing crazy. You see the damage already he gets from Brahmatra, and you actually see Proper makes the first move. Now, we're going to be focusing on HeeSang, but it's worth noting that Proper plays a slightly different style than HeeSang. where Proper plays mostly with the core and then just looks for engage timing, sort of in and out timings, whereas HeeSang is much more flank orientated, which I think is a more optimal way to play Venture, which is why we're focusing on HeeSang today. But we're going to see Proper making his first move, and what Proper does when he makes his first move is he provides an opportunity for HeeSang. What we're going to see is they're actually going to wall off. You can just see it here, the wall off, and they're going to try and catch Proper here. Now, HeeSang's going to slightly mistime his drill dash. He goes slightly too early, and you can just see Proper escape over the top there. And then it's all going to go really wrong because the repush is actually really powerful, and Hanbin and Chiyo are going to line up their cooldowns, hit the slow, hit the torpedoes, and basically one-shot the entire Crazy Raccoon team. But you can kind of see the idea. And I think, even though in that situation the punish doesn't work for HeeSang, I think, especially versus another Venture, but also in general, anytime someone is out of position or a DPS is trying to take an aggressive angle, Venture can be very good at punishing these heroes because they have the drill dash, they have the burrow to get onto them, and then the drill dash to maybe push them back in. Lots of good ways to punish out of positions heroes, and again, we'll see more of that as we go through. Now, as we move into the second fight, HeeSang's going to approach it slightly differently. This time, once he gets to the corner and he's teamed up trading, he's going to burrow underneath. And you can see he's going to drill dash just to try and scare everyone back, and then try and take his top left position. Now, the reason HeeSang wants his top left position is, again, it's a small flank where he can take good one-on-ones if he gets them, but also because the Ana is here. We talked at the start about how much the Ana can influence the fight, so HeeSang wants to try and push Fielder out of position, or even get the kill if he possibly can. Now, Proper no slouch going to come mark HeeSang as well. We talked about how good Venture is at punishing heroes who try and take aggressive positions, and Proper's going to try and do the same thing here. So HeeSang burrows into position, but because he sees he's being marked by Proper, he's going to drill dash out immediately. And this is the nice thing about Venture's kit. Because you have two movement abilities in the burrow and the drill dash, you can burrow into a place to try and find a flank. And then if you get under any pressure, or you think you can see you're about to unburrow and it doesn't look too great, you can drill dash up and out and just reset back with the team, which is exactly what HeeSang does here. It's worth noting that Max has actually gone on to D.Va as well. Similarly, I think this is very much an Ana-focused swap to take the Ana out of the game. And actually what happens, because Proper goes to mark in this position and Max goes there as well, Max is actually going to be able to punish Proper in this situation. So now Proper has been punished. You can see immediately HeeSang is keen to retake the flank. And this is what you'll see all the good DPS players do. They'll try and take a flank. If they are pushed off the flank, if they can't take the angle they want to take, they'll back up to main. But then they'll very, very quickly try and retake the aggressive position to try and influence the fight again. And that's exactly what HeeSang does here. So now what you can see is now HeeSang has this flank. Now there's no one to contest him. Proper's dead, has full access to this. What HeeSang's going to do is going to exploit this to go onto the backline. And we'll see exactly how it goes for Fielder once HeeSang gets the one-on-one opportunity. Easy as you like, right? Easy as you like. Meanwhile, the raid trade has actually been started. Chiyo and Fielder both committing their raids here. And next we're going to see a very important part of Venture's kit as well, whereas her ability to dislodge people or push people out of potentially safe areas. Gonna burrow underneath, takes the trade, drill dashes Chiyo out of the ray, so now Chiyo is no longer getting the 100 healing per second that the ray provides, able to take out Chiyo, and then can just drop and clean up the rest of the fight nice and easy. So this was a good example of Venture using their kit to interfere with someone else's ult. This is also very useful against stuff like Baptiste window, if you want to push Baptiste away from using it, or engage. Burrow as well, we'll see later in this map as well. Burrow, a very useful tool for disengaging ultimates, stuff like May ult, stuff like Annihilation, things like that. There's lots of great ways to interfere with ultimates. We'll take a quick sidebar to show you another example, and this is from Stalker playing the Venture in an earlier series in the tournament against Fnatic, and this is playing into the Junker Queen, and I think this is a really great example of how powerful the Venture drill dash can be against certain ultimates. We're going to see Falcons here trying to push for choke, but it's actually going to be Fnatic who make the first move. So you can see the Tectonic Shock is used. Stalker immediately going to burrow underneath, avoid this ultimate. This is why Venture is so good at holding some of these close aggressive positions, because you can just get out of them. Gets out. Now what Fnatic are doing is they're trying to turn on Hanbin, who's kited this way. Chiyo's going to nail the beat to keep everyone alive, but then they have to be really careful because Chiyo's using this beat. This presents a huge opportunity for Donghak to press for Rampage without the beat to counter it out. But keep your eyes on Stalker and what Stalker does. He's going to hold on to his cooldowns. He's going to face check for Junker Queen, hits for drill dash, and then all of a sudden, the Suzu's able to hit most people. Chio still gets caught by it, but which is just about to survive, but stops that rampage running all the way through their team. Now, if Stalker is able to do this, anytime you can just trade your cooldowns for an enemy's ultimate, that's massive. Likewise, even though you will still get hit by the rampage if you do this, you burrow underneath, and again, that anti-healing will stop hitting you. So I think a really important thing to remember as we look at some of these ult trades, and something to really consider if you want to get the most out of Venture. We'll take another look at the end of this fight just to demonstrate the power of Venture being able to play in these off angles. In general, when you're playing two broadly compositions, what happens quite a lot is there are going to be certain timings where the enemy team want to push. And you can see right now, Chio's using the orbital ray, they want to push. But because HeeSang has got this position on the flank, they're able to go and get into the Ana, and as the entire team tries to push forward, it's really hard to push forward and deal with a threat behind or a threat to the side, and this is exactly why HeeSang feels like they have infinite space and infinite time to kill this Ana, because everyone else's attention is focused forward. So while the rest of Crazy Raccoon, they take a back step, it just opens it up for HeeSang to walk into the back, find this value nice and easily, and this is the power of playing these angles and in these brawly comps. Now, as we move on to this next fight, this one's going to be slightly different because Crazy Raccoon have actually won a fight now, which means they have a chance to set up their positions early, take the fight how they want it. And you can see HeeSang takes another one of these positions on an angle, separate from the core of his team. Again, ready to help with this frontline trade. So you're going to see once Hanbin starts to walk up, there's going to be plenty of trade here. You can see how frustrating this is for Hanbin. They're even actually going to wall him off just to try and slow HeeSang down. And again, you can see this difficult situation that they have where if Falcons want to be aggressive because they have lots of ults that are quite reasonable to be aggressive with. They can be aggressive, but if they go aggressive, then they are leaving themselves open to either HeeSang coming out and punishing them or providing HeeSang an opportunity to go in behind. Likewise, if they were to just go and try and deal with HeeSang first, if they try and walk into this doorway, then all of HeeSang's team is looking at him. They can all do a lot of damage to these players, and because the Venture has such good cooldowns to get themselves out of these sort of pickles, they can burrow underneath or even drill dash out, or even just fight people. They become very difficult to dislodge from these sorts of positions. And now if we look at HeeSang's decision making here, you can see he actually gets caught in two minds a little bit because he's got so many good options. Initially, it looks like he's potentially eyeing up a drill dash into these two heroes. Can he punish for DPS, push them out of position? Potentially. Obviously, because Venture may have a DPS in question from Falcons as well, they all have cooldowns to survive, so they might be quite hard to punish. So instead, HeeSang changes his mind, goes for the Ana, which I think is, in general, one of his primary goals in this composition. As you can see, Max is on the same page as well. They want to take this Ana out of the game while the rest of his team plays slower in main. HeeSang is actually going to get slept here. I think partly because he looked at the DPS before going on the Ana. Maybe if he looks at the Ana, he's got a bit of a better chance to outplay. Either way, he'll tank the sleep. Max will get on top of the Ana. Fielder does his absolute best to dodge and juke. HeeSang will get woken up, and then you can see they'd even try and wall defensively for Fielder, but HeeSang's going to commit in, manages to get the kill, works out really nicely. And even though Fielder hits his cooldowns, he dodges the Diva for a while. Despite all of this, the Venture Diva, the dive, it's too hard for Team Falcons to deal with. And even though they come back and try and get a punish, which they do eventually get the punish, the damage has already been done. They've lost their Ana. They actually lost their Juno in the course of this as well. And a lot of this all stems from the fact that Falcons tried to go forward, but as they went forward, they had to deal with threats behind. You see how at one point, at the start of the fight, the Falcons DPS were in this room looking aggressively, but by the end of it, we see Stalker defensively walling, and we see Proper diving back here to try and deal with this. Obviously, HeeSang does invest for Tectonic Shock, which is probably a bit optimistic. Doesn't work out in this case, but the damage has been done. They've cleaned up the fight, and they've got the pick on the Ana, which is the crucial one for them to get. Now, they don't actually win that previous fight because Hanbin hits a massive clutch. And now we're going to see HeeSang come in right back into this fight. Doesn't have time to set up on the flank or the position. Just ends up with the core of their team as they're still trying to get Max out of there. And now, because Max is low, we're going to see Stalker make an really, really aggressive decision here to wall himself up so he can try and get this D-Mech onto Max. Now, this is one super aggressive, but now this is obviously super aggressive from Stalker, and we talked about HeeSang getting into positions on flanks so he could isolate backline targets, get on them directly, get the one-on-one. Now what we're going to see is HeeSang just coming back from main, playing with the core of his team, but sees somebody overextend, in this case Stalker, and uses the cooldowns to punish that person overextending. You can see he makes a beeline for him, but he actually kills Stalker anyway, and then HeeSang will just drop, start playing main with the team, sees an opportunity for the Juno, actually makes a mess of it, and even though a lot of this first point hasn't really gone that well for HeeSang, you can hopefully see a lot of sort of core fundamentals of the playstyle that he's trying to implement. In this next fight now, Lip's actually come back on Tracer because these swaps come back fast. HeeSang's going to go left side, so again we see HeeSang taking these flank positions. On this one, however, it's just going to get one shot by Proper and Stalker, so it can happen to anyone, okay? It can happen to anyone. So now we're going to see HeeSang coming back from that early death, and because they lost one early, you can see Falcons are actually walling and pushing Max and trying to find more value. So HeeSang just coming back from main, trying to join in with the team. We see Falcons go for their turn of cooldowns, they drop the wall, they try and put pressure onto Max. Max is going to be able to disengage it. Now it's obviously Crazy Raccoon's turn to go with their cooldown, so you can see Max is going to walk up with his form, try and find a timing. Stalker's going to drop the Blizzard on that timing as Crazy Raccoon try and take a step forward, so Crazy Raccoon are going to disengage. But here we see something very interesting where all of Crazy Raccoon are moving backwards right now, but HeeSang has gone underground. He's burrowed underground, and he's going to disengage, but he's going to essentially disengage forward and take the flank here against Falcons. So as they disengage this Mail, by the time the fight ends, even though they've had to disengage the fight, now all of a sudden, Crazy Raccoon actually find themselves in a position where they've got 3 people coming from main, Lip's still on Tracer on the flank, and actually HeeSang's managed to gain a flank while disengaging the ult. So now, when Max goes with his next form timing, all of a sudden this is a very dangerous situation for Falcons to potentially be in. Saying all that though, Crazy Raccoon are actually still at an ult disadvantage here, so I think HeeSang could have stayed on the flank honestly and played to do something with Lip, but actually chooses to go back main, while Falcons are just going to drop the orbital ray on this next push, and it's going to absolutely obliterate Max. As such, HeeSang's just going to make a safe decision, just get out, preserve his life, reset for the next fight. At least they got Blizzard, they got orbital ray out. So even though Crazy Raccoon lost that fight, the fact that it took 2 of the most powerful ults from Falcons to win it, probably quite happy with that for Crazy Raccoon, and now a decent opportunity in this next fight. Now with a more reasonable ult advantage, we're going to see HeeSang take a very similar position, trying to go up in this slight off angle compared to where his Ramattra is. The cooldown trade is going to happen at the choke, and you see HeeSang's just going to slink into this little side channel, try and find an opportunity, looks for a drill dash to try and force out a cooldown or something they can punish. Generally, Brig is a pretty good hero for this, because if a Brig has to bash away, all of a sudden, very easy for the Ram to chase that Brig down if they've got no bash, and the Ram still has slow and form. Likewise, if you can force a Mei Ice Block or something like this, you can put them into very scary situations. Now the wall comes out, and you can see just uses the unburrow just to try and make the way that Hanbin wants to go a little bit more difficult. Tries to find this damage. Will drop the Tectonic Shock. You can see Proper's also invested in this ultimate as well. Chirong's got the rally slightly quicker though, so able to provide a bit of shield, and forces Proper underground first. Now the later rally comes out from Fielder, they're going to start pushing back here, but you can see again, HeeSang's so switched on that anytime the enemy Venture goes and burrows underneath, there's a chance to punish it. Looks for the punish here, hits the drill dash, a bit unlucky not to get the kill in the air in all honesty, but ultimately able to regroup with the team, Shoes drops in the orbital ray, and they manage to convert the ult advantage situation. So hopefully we're now seeing some of the fundamentals in terms of how HeeSang sets himself up pre-fight, during fights, and the sort of opportunities he looks to take during the fight as well from those good positions. Now a chance to forward hold for Crazy Raccoon, and we see HeeSang again, not playing too far from his core, but just a slight angle, and you can see the damage he immediately puts on Proper. Forces Proper to burrow, then Proper's going to try and use that time, because he's been forced to burrow, to go underneath and try and put some pressure on the enemy backline. HeeSang though switched onto this, you can see, eagle-eyed, locks in on Proper, looks for the punish as the unburrow comes through, hits the punish perfectly, burrows, and looks to go get back into position again, maybe somewhere around here, to get a nice angle and pressure on the Ram. Really nice from HeeSang, outplays Proper. Unfortunately for Crazy Raccoon, Max has gone in and has got frozen all the way over here somehow, some way, which means even though they got this punish onto Proper, because they lose their tank, they're going to be forced to disengage, and this fight will end here for them. Now, as we go into the next fight, Crazy Raccoon are waiting to get Max back. You see HeeSang just holding a very similar position. Now, actually, what's going to happen is because Max is respawning, Falcon's going to try and make an aggressive timing on this, which leads to a very weird situation where Crazy Raccoon flip the map. But what we're going to see here as well is HeeSang's going to run into Proper and actually just about wins the 1v1. Now, we'll see more of this throughout the map, but Venture's very good at taking these one-on-ones of a flank against almost every hero. And that's because the Venture's combos are so good. There's a few different ways to do the combo. I think the max damage one is maybe M1 into melee, into drill dash, into melee again. But when you're fighting another Venture, what you want to do is you want to make sure there's a 0% chance they get underground. Because if they get underground, they just get away and they get a chance to reset. So here we see HeeSang actually go left click, so M1 straight into drill dash. And you see the drill dash also very much aimed up to make it so even if Proper does try to burrow, he's got a longer distance before he gets underground, more chance for HeeSang to convert the kill. On this occasion, HeeSang does indeed win the 1v1, hits the combo slightly better, gets the drill dash. And now we can see, this is now we're in this map flip situation. So Falcons, in all honesty, have made an absolute mess of this. They tried to drop down here onto Ramatra, try and push with the Orbital Ray, but Crazy Raccoon have flipped down here. So what HeeSang's going to do is now, basically, his team are here, and Falcons are here. He's going to still use the same position. He's just going to turn around and take a flank from the other route. And as we can see, as Falcons are now rushing towards the point, it becomes very tricky for them. Again, HeeSang's going to hit the burrow. And again, look at this timing. You notice HeeSang doesn't just burrow as soon as he sees the enemy team. When he burrows once an ult is being committed from Falcons, like an Annihilation, like a Blizzard, like we saw earlier, what this means is the enemy team's going to push forward. So HeeSang burrowing and going underground at this point is going to cause disruption. So while Falcons want to push forward, they're actually having to deal with this pesky Venture who's underneath them. And as you can see, HeeSang's going to spot an isolated target, unburrow, drill dash, kills Fielder. And now it's just on a flank and just able to do a whole bunch of damage to everyone. Obviously, Falcons got themselves in quite a mess there, but you can see really nicely timed by HeeSang there. Whenever you can find these timings as a flanker to go while the other team is trying to push, it's so hard for the other team to do both things at the same time, to push and deal with you on the flank. And I think this is one of the key powers of Venture. I think if a team wants to push in a brawl-type brawl matchup, one thing that's always difficult at dealing with is some kind of DPS or someone with a side angle that can do a lot of damage or even push them or go into them. This is why you quite often see Genji in a lot of these metas as well. The nice thing about Venture, though, is Venture doesn't have to start on an existing side position, even though we see HeeSang try and do that a lot. With the burrow, you can essentially create another angle, but the angle is underneath. So as they try and push forward, you go underneath them, you can pop up, and you can cause an element of separation. We've seen quite a few times now HeeSang's able to catch Fielder in that separated moment, or sometimes Chio, and then able to convert a kill off the back of it here. Crazy Raccoon have now pushed it through the first part of third for free, and we're going to see them start this fight with Tectonic Shock. Now, it's not going to go very well here from HeeSang. You can see he's going to turn the corner in a second and drop that ultimate. They've got no shield from Ramatra, so he uses that as a bit of a timing. Tries to drop this, does force an Ice Blackout, does force all of them, tries to capture Proper, misses the exit Tectonic Shock, but they get the kill anyway. Now, this works out for them here, but I'm not convinced that it's actually optimal to use the Tectonic Shock necessarily in this way. I think a lot more of the time, the Tectonic Shock to me feels like a mid-fight ult or a final ult in a fight. So if you're maybe going to go, we use a support ult, they use support ult, then we use Tectonic Shock to finish. I think if you use Tectonic Shock first tempo just around a corner and the other team has all their cooldowns, their Ram Shield, their Maywall, their Ice Block, Suzu, whatever it might be, it's really hard to find meaningful value. Whereas if you go around the corner, you maybe take a neutral first or do some kind of wall trade and then you drop a Tectonic Shock, I think that's going to give you way more consistent opportunities way more often with this type of ultimate. I think it's too easy to disengage just around the corner. Likewise, I think it can actually be very good in the same way a lot of people use High Noon, where if the enemy team wants to push with something, say a Kitsune Rush, or maybe more commonly in this meta, an Orbital Ray, if they're pushing with the Orbital Ray and you're just able to send the shockwaves back through the Tectonic Shock, it can just stop them, slow them down, pushing through an Orbital Ray and getting the full value out of it they would have wanted. Similar with Annihilation, I think similar, it can be almost used as a sort of counter push or to stop the other team being as aggressive into you. I think these are more reasonable ways to use it. I'm not convinced, even if they do get the punish here onto Proper, I feel like this becomes more a mistake from why did Proper commit in at this point when the rest of his team was taking a step back, more than anything the Tectonic Shock from HeeSang really did. Either way though, You can't complain, they get a pick somehow, and now we see HeeSang take a very similar position again immediately. Look how quick he is going from, I'm going to use my ult in main to try and help the team push, and then immediately I'm going to retake this position I want to retake. I'm back on the flank. And the nice thing about this flank is, even though Venture has lots of good tools to get into flanks for free with Burrow and Drill Dash and good movement abilities, it's always better if you can just walk on the flank. And the nice thing about these short ones is it's not that far to walk. So it takes a short walk down the left, runs into Stalker, realizes the flank's being marked, so you can see HeeSang's going to immediately burrow now. Looks for an opportunity. You can see he takes a little bit of a fish around, see if there's anything he can go on. But then he sees the fact that Hambin and Stalker are both staring HeeSang in the eyes, at which point HeeSang decides, okay, I get it. You're marking the flank. I'll just reset with my team. But what do good DPS do when their flank is marked? They retreat back, and then they immediately retake the flank again. And this time, who's not ready for the flank now? Because as you can see through the outline, Max is pushing in main. A lot harder now for Falcons to deal with. They've even actually forced the ice block off Max's slow. So HeeSang's going to look for this punish in. And the nice thing is, because he walks on the flank, he's actually going to have both these cooldowns for Drill Dash to try and push someone in. Doesn't quite work out as he would have wanted, but goes for a Drill Dash and then is able to burrow underneath. And now you can see able to cheat in this Blizzard, cheat in this Kitsune Rush. Now, to be fair, they do use quite a lot of ults here, so as much as HeeSang will be able to get out, they do chase down a few remaining players of Crazy Raccoon. But you can see how, in reality, HeeSang did have the ability to get out there, despite going all the way in deep. Venture's got actually way more movement abilities than you would think. Even though HeeSang's able to get out, the rest of his team are not able to get out, and this is ultimately last fight. So they do lose this here, partly because they're able to just use a billion ultimates in this last fight. But hopefully you can see from this attack how HeeSang has been using a lot of same principles every fight. Taking a small off angle, trying to find value, whether that value is trading onto Hambin to help give Max the advantage in the frontline fight, or to use that little side angle to turn into a deeper flank, whether that's to eliminate the Ana or a high priority target, or just to try and boop in somebody else if there's not any high value targets like that. We've also seen a lot of how HeeSang's able to take these very aggressive positions and then turn it into a disengage with his team as well. It's always important when you are playing a flank heavy hero or a role that can do things independently is to be aware of your team's push and pull timings. You notice even though HeeSang is kind of doing a lot of his own thing in terms of playing his own positions, playing these small flanks, sometimes going for his own plays onto the backline, sometimes going for his own flanks, he is always doing it on the same timing as what Max and the rest of his team are doing. When he's Cora pushing, that's when HeeSang takes his timing. When he's Cora disengaging, HeeSang is just playing his life or trying to set up a good position for the next engage. He's never caught just making these solo plays. Always working with the team's timing. That's super important, remember, when playing any flanker character, but particularly with Venture. We'll skip through a lot of his first defense just because HeeSang is playing Pharah, and we'll get to where he plays Venture again. I think the main reason he starts Pharah over Venture is a lot of those aggressive positions we saw HeeSang taking on the attack aren't as useful for the defenders. So Pharah, a very powerful hero on Circuit Royale always, with these high buildings and strong corners where he can just float above. So opts that for first point, and we'll get to second point where he plays for Venture again. Worth noting that Falcons are now on the Ana again, so HeeSang's priority is going to change a little bit to try and get on the Ana. We see HeeSang burrow to try and take an aggressive position, try and see if he can find anyone split. Doesn't see anything, so just regroups with the team. We'll reset, and then we'll go into just trading with the front line. Again, looks for an opportunity, potentially threatening a side angle. Drill dash over top, looking for the Ana, but then realizes very quickly that his team is dying, so opts just to try and die on point instead. Looks for the trade onto Chio, still gets the trade onto Chio, and doesn't let the payload move. Now this next fight, even though HeeSang made an effort to go die on, Car actually goes wrong for him because they're not able to touch. A good wall from Stalker denies all of this. He can't burrow underneath walls, so they don't get the touch. They end up C9 in the first point, and HeeSang's just going to regroup with team. Again, you see a similar opportunity he looks for where he manages to drill dash upwards, catch proper coming out of that burrow. Not quite able to burrow and avoid dying there, but a lot of the same principles in terms of looking for that mid-fight Venture punish or any kind of DPS who's out of position punish. As we move on to third point here, a big time bank for Crazy Raccoon to try and deal with. As we take a look at HeeSang, he's going to be doing a lot of the same things, where immediately regroups with his team, looks for a drill dash to get onto this slight off angle, just trying to harass for front line, try and find an opportunity to deal with someone. You can see backing up to this corner, happy to take in these fights as Stalker wants to try and poke him out. Then uses the drill dash. You've seen as a decision here where essentially HeeSang is looking for the backline again, but especially because of Viana. Can he find a way to connect? Realizes the backline is too far, so instead of committing and doubling down, we'll just opt to unburrow here, and instead looks to punish the tank behind. This is something HeeSang doesn't do it all that much in this series, but I think it's a very viable play where if you burrow underneath, you look for backline, but you realize that the backline is too far or they're playing very safe, then you just come back a little bit. You can either just retake your flank position, or if the enemy tank you think is in a too far forward position, you can push that tank in. Here they're actually going to go with Lips Blizzard, so you can see HeeSang's just in a position to kill that tank. You can see Stalker's being quite aggressive on him, and now we'll disengage as a result. So they go in, they get the freeze. Falcons do have the ultimates to save Hanbin from that freeze, and HeeSang's just going to reset to this high ground position again. Now a chance for Crazy Raccoon to go with their own ultimate. They're going to drop the orbital ray around the corner. We're going to see HeeSang go straight through the wall. Max is going to kill Fielder. Again, we see so switched on to this unburrow timing from Proper. Anytime a DPS or someone oversteps, HeeSang is there to punish. Gets the burrow back in. And will finish them off with a nice double kill at the end. So good recognition by HeeSang about when he can take the flank, when they're putting too much attention on him, so he has to try and give the space. And you notice again, he's going out whenever his team are going out, he's going in whenever his team are going in. He's timing with his team, always really good. You can see it here from this angle, just so you get a better idea of sort of spacing. We see HeeSang on this side here, taking this angle that's annoying to deal with. Then eventually his team are going to make a decision to go with this Blizzard. There's the burrow underneath on the Blizzard timing. You can see that, in fact, well, Fielder is so far back, Shear was in the sky. No chance for HeeSang to get onto any of these targets in a meaningful way. So instead, takes the safer unburrow, looks to just punish Hanbin here instead. After winning that fight, HeeSang is going to do what he loves to do when he's seen with won the fight and he has a chance to set up. Go find a sneaky corner to sit on, somewhere hard to dislodge, somewhere hard to remove. Maybe he even runs into someone and gets a chance to take a one-on-one, because we talked about how good Venture is on one-on-ones. You can see here, Lip's actually going to bait a little bit to the left, so Proper's going to come this direction, and what happens? The same thing. HeeSang nails the combo, takes Proper down before anything happens. Nice and easy. Then burrows underneath, spots another opportunity with an isolated support. Chia's trying to disengage from main, and all of a sudden does get taken down, but the damage has most certainly been done, and Crazy Raccoon will be able to clean up this fight as a result. Good use here of HeeSang, again, just camping a corner, exploiting how good Venture's combos are in those situations, getting the one shot onto Proper, then immediately turning it into a flank, finding one of these backliners, and then all of a sudden, in that situation, Fielder and Shear, they're not in the far back high ground, they think they're okay to be here. Turns out they were wrong. Now we're going to see HeeSang playing a very similar position, but a little bit further back. He's going to have his remark from the corner. He's going to be playing this high ground, so he can help a lot with the frontline battle, be annoying from this top area. And then if the Ana ever comes up too far or the enemy team push in, he's got the option to either drop on them or even drop on the supports at the back. Just spamming the frontline for now. Hanbin's going to make the first aggressive move. Hanbin's going to immediately kill Lip, which is a big problem. And we're going to tectonic shock, which is a big problem. You can see how much of a problem Falcons are having with this Venture on the angle, and that they're actually even going to use their wall rather than for the frontline trade, just to wall off the Venture to try and keep the Venture contained. You can see, because obviously this is essentially last fight with a checkbox here, HeeSang's kind of panicking, realizes he has to try and invest their ults, tries to drop it through, will go underneath and stop the payload, and is now really just in a desperation. Stall the payload as long as possible. Tries to get out. Does get out for now, but will get hunted down by Proper and will get finished off. And ultimately, Falcons do win the map from here. So while Crazy Raccoon did lose that map, I think HeeSang demonstrated a lot of the core principles that make Venture so strong, and a reason we might see more and more Venture in the future. I think the big things to take away are how HeeSang starts the fight, the positions he puts himself in, and the positions he tries to find mid-fight, so he can find these flank opportunities or these small off angles to try and isolate a target. Because that's where Venture really excels. Once Venture can isolate a target, their one-on-one ability is so strong. We can see them nail those combos and just convert kills. We saw HeeSang do that multiple times to Fielder, to Proper, to Chio, to anybody you got in his way. So the more times you can set those opportunities, the better time you're going to have. And I think the biggest thing to take away from HeeSang in particular is how well timed everything HeeSang did with his team was. He found these engaged timings always when his team was doing something. He was never just in by himself or out going in when his team were going backwards. Always going back when his team were, always going in with his team were. That's a sign of good communication when two separate groups are able to nail their timing so consistently. Likewise, I think the way HeeSang played around a lot of ultimates in terms of going in, burrowing, turning that burrow into a flank or turning that burrow into another off angle. Really effective things that Venture can do in these sort of push and pull metas that we see so commonly right now. And of course, the counterplay to some ults. We actually saw Stalker do a clip of it against the rampaging Junker Queen on New Junk City. But in general, I think Venture is very powerful into a lot of these ultimates, whether it's dislodging someone from an orbital ray like we saw him do to Chio, or whether it's just cancelling the ult or stunning it back, which is very good against Rampage, very good against Annihilation and those type of ults. Hopefully we all learned a thing or two about Venture. I think they're a very enjoyable hero to watch, very powerful in the right hands, and I hope we see more of them both in Stage 4 and of course at DreamHack Stockholm. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing more of these type of videos, so if there's a particular match or a particular hero or a particular performance from a player on a particular hero that you think is worth looking at, please let me know. We'll delve into it. We'll try and figure some stuff out. Thank you.